All right, we're going to go over Chapter 6 as promised, but before we do, everybody now has a hard copy, and this works, but I want to show you quickly a couple things. First of all, I did go back and I changed the keyboard type for this to numeric decimal, all right? And the other thing, if you don't have to look, but please listen to this. When you want to find out how something works with Java and Android, I'm going to suggest it doesn't matter if you type Android Java or Java Android, but if I do this, let's just say Android, convert, I don't know, string to double. Okay, I'm going to get what I want, but the point is, if you just put Android, sometimes they'll give you the Kotlin stuff first. And if I go in and do this, and I type in Java, convert string to double, it'll just give me the Java stuff, which won't necessarily be Android. But if I come in here and I type in Android Java, I'm going to almost always get what I want. All right? So what I did was I looked for how to print the pound symbol. Literally, how to print British pound on a printer in Android code. And the suggestion was, and you have it on your hard copy I gave you, was to do this. You use, this is a Unicode character, \U00A3, and that make a variable out of that. That's what I did. So now if you look up on the screen here, it's nothing big. But notice here I've got $158.12. Now notice when I click convert, and you see see I've got this pound symbol there. See that? So it's there. All right. Again, that wasn't designed to make you go, oh my God, you know. But it's just so you know that virtually anything you want to do, you can go out and search for it and find out how to do it. The reason that I'm telling you that is if you haven't heard this already, all right, Android app creation is a growing field. And the more things that you put out there on your electronic portfolio, and the better they look, the better the chance you're going to have of landing a job. All right? I read this story online. You know, you might say, oh, it's online, it's a lie. Maybe it is. But they had a thing where a guy actually went in for an interview, and it was for a non-Android job. But it was, they didn't even say the language. I think it was Java from what they talked about it. But somehow the guy got into talking to the person interviewing him. And he told him, well, yeah, I've got an app out on the App Store. And he showed him the app. This was an HR guy. He brought in the guy, this guy, you know, the programming guy, and they hired him on the spot. Now, that's not always going to happen. I mean, if I told you that, I'd be lying. It'd be total bull. But it's never going to hurt. You know, you need a way typically to get your foot in the door. All right, whatever it happens to be. And you may or may not know this, and what I'm about to tell you is very unfair. But still, the number one way that people get hired is you've got a family member who works someplace or a friend. It's nepotism. And I'm not saying that that's fair. That's just the way that it is. When I got my job at AT&T Bell Labs, when I worked there, my wife's ex-brother-in-law was working there at the time. He didn't get me the job, but he got me an interview. All right, and at the time, I had no computer experience. I was a journalism guy. But the guy told me, well, with your ability to talk and your ability to write, if you'd go back and get a 2-year degree in IT and you'd interview here, he said, if you wouldn't get a job here, you'd get a job quickly someplace. That's what started me on my road. All right, so Chapter 6, how to handle events. I am on page 165. Now, when you look at what's in here, they talk about listeners. Okay? Did you notice? Because you guys were all saying, you forgot to do this, you forgot to do this. I showed you yet another way of putting in a button, correct? There are so many different ways, just like when you set up listeners, there's different ways of doing it. They're going to show you 4 different ways to handle listeners. They get more complex with each way they show you. The author of the book even says, I use the first way because it's the easiest. I'd recommend you do the same. Now, if you don't want to, then you're not going to. All right, you say, oh, I like to challenge myself. Okay, cool. Try doing it more than one way, or try doing it the hard way, whatever you want. But they're going to talk about high-level events and low-level events and how each are handled. All right? So, first thing they have here, I don't know why it does that, but lately it kicks me out and makes me log back in again. I love programs that do that because it's auto-filled anyway, so I don't know why they're doing that, but they are. Come on. All right. So they have a summary of the different listeners on page 167 here. The top ones are high-level listeners. All right. So notice what we have for edit text. Now notice it says on editor action. You can literally set stuff up so that you can check every keystroke. So if somebody puts something in, even if it's legal, so to speak, based on the type of keyboard you set up, you can keep them from doing things you don't want them to do. All right. Then there's a compound button on check change. I never even used a compound button, so I'm not going to tell you what that does. Radio groups, you know what radio groups are. Seek bars, you know what they are. We're going to talk a little bit about adapters in just a bit. All right, but those are high level. Then you've got the low level. The on-click listener is the one you're going to use most often. These low level things that you see right here, you can run those on virtually any kind of control. I could set it up so when you click on the title, you get a welcome message or something. So you can do that. These only work with certain controls, edit text, etc. But these, it says view because it's virtually anything. All right. Does everybody understand what this is? The on long click listener. That when you are working with apps on a mobile device, sometimes you have to click and hold down for a few seconds for something to happen. So you can program it that way. Again, there's key listeners for keystrokes, focus change, so when you move from one field to the other, and even touch things. All right? Because again, you know this. Many of the things that you do in the Android app world will be based on touch. All right. A listener listens. High-level events occur on a specific type of widget. Low-level occur on all types. All right? So they give you these 4 techniques. All right? And they show you them on the next several pages. Here's the first one. All right? So the author says here, in Chapter 3, you learned one technique for handling an event. Now we review this technique. So this is the way they showed it before. All right? So if you come in here and you look, notice we've imported Android view.view, and it's weird because it's little view, little v, then a big V, and it's the on-click listener. All right? Then we come in, and we did something like this before, where we did some work, not maybe exactly this, but this one right here, this example that they're showing, on the tip calculator, you got those 2 buttons, one that says plus and one that says minus. When you're running the tip calculator and you click this one, you go down by 1%. When you click this one, you go up by 1%. Does that make sense? All right. So you set up the listeners, and you code a class that implements the listener. Okay. So this is one way you can do it. It's probably, out of the 4 ways they show, the easiest way. All right. Turning up to 170 and 171. They talk about an anonymous class. Somebody tell me this. What's an anonymous class? Class that doesn't have a name. Typically, when you have an anonymous method or an anonymous class, etc., it's because a lot of times they're called one and done. You call them once, it does its thing, you never worry about it again. All right? So they go through that. I'm not going to run through all 4 of these. I'm going to recommend you use the first way. All right? But you can do it any way you want. The author even says here on the bottom of page 170. it says, how do you know which one to use? And the author says it's a matter of personal preference. Yeah, that's true. In general, I recommend the technique that results in the most readable and maintainable code. All right, that's the first one. And if you are going to write the app and you're working for a company where someone else is going to maintain it, you want to write it in as intuitive a way as possible so they're not always bugging you saying, Evan, why'd you do this? Evan, why'd you do this? Evan, why'd you do this? Why didn't you do it this way? All right. All right. So with the high-level events, they start here on page 172 with checkboxes. You all know what checkboxes are. There actually is a reason when you think about it. Maybe you didn't use checkboxes much in the ASP.NET class, but you used them first semester when you wrote forms. You used them second semester when we had C#. So the stuff that's in here isn't, something that should really challenge you. Every time you click a checkbox, a check changed event takes place. All right? And it's going to be set to checked or unchecked. And there are things that you can, I guess it sounds like a bad joke, check with that. All right? But notice what we have in here. You typically say if is checked. All right? And for lack of better words, this is a toggle, isn't it? It's true or false. All right? And typically you want to do something or you don't want to do something based upon whether it's checked or whether it's not checked. So the author says right here, the check changed event on either a button or a checkbox occurs when either one of them is checked or unchecked, chosen or not, or unchosen if you want. The first parameter is a compound button object. The second parameter is a Boolean that is going to indicate whether it's checked or not checked. And they show you that right here. Right? How to handle events for radio groups. Does it make sense to all of you that when you set this up, look on the screen please, that would be a radio button group? Does that make sense? With radio button groups, they typically all have the same name. They'll have different values. Otherwise, how would you know one from the other? In this tip calculating thing, it says, what do you want to do here? So, in other words, if my bill is $37.12, and let's say that the tip comes out to $7.53, do I want to round my tip? Do I want to round the total, or do I not want to round at all? So only one of these can be chosen. All right? So as it says, this event occurs when a new button within the group is checked. Again, there are two parameters. All right? The first one is the radio group object. The second one is the on-check changed method. It's the ID and what you're going to want to do with it. All right. What's a spinner? It's a drop-down list. I don't like the way that this drop-down list looks, but it says split the bill, and when you click that right here, it's going to give you these options. All right? I'll tell you, maybe I mentioned this to you, probably not, but I remember as a young kid going out to dinner with my folks. We didn't have a lot of money, so we didn't go out often, but once in a while, if we went out to a nice place, my dad having this laminated piece of paper that had bill amount, tip percentage, and how much you were supposed to give. And he would always, I don't know where he'd even store it, but he'd pull it out. It was like about like this, like an 8.5 by, but you couldn't fold it because it was laminated. And I always thought to myself, God, I hope nobody comes into this place that I know. You know, ask me, Dad. I was in 4th grade and I could figure out the math. I could tell him what his tip was. No, Jeff, I'm going to look at it on here. Yeah, whatever. All right. So as it says, hold on a sec. The on-item selected method is executed when the spinner is first displayed and whenever a new item is selected. But if you've already chosen an item and you choose that item again, nothing happens. All right? The on nothing selected method, again, is executed when the selection disappears. That should very rarely, if ever, happen. Seek bars. Okay? If you look at the seek bar on the screen right now, a couple things about it. First of all, it's at 15%, so it's showing you right there where it is. And it's about in the middle. So really the range on there is either 1 to 30 or 0 to 30. All right? Maybe when you're doing this with a tip, you want to be able to say, well, the waiter or waitress was good, but not that good. My wife gets all peeved at me because I'll give 20% almost all the time. She's like, waiter wasn't that good. They know they don't make that much money when they work here. Whatever. She's never said to me, you know what, that was really good service. Leave a good tip. She's never said that to me. All right. So the stuff that's in here, the on start tracking touch is executed when you change the value. Does everybody get this? Look on the screen. I mentioned this the other day. This, by and large, is going to be changed, not with a keyboard. It's set up to be changed with your thumb. Keep that in mind, that if you are building your app and you're going to put something like that in there, this is no joke. You might think I'm trying to be funny. I'm not. First of all, some people really have no dexterity, especially when it comes to stuff on their phone. And other people have really fat thumbs or really thin thumbs. You want to make it as easy for them to use as possible. So when you're in the middle of testing something, not maybe the app for your class, but if you graduate from here and you want to make your own app, have a lot of different people test it. All right. The on-stop tracking touch is the opposite of the on-start tracking touch. It's when you finish. The progress changed provides progress. All right. If you want to be able to determine whether or not somebody is updated, you can check the from user parameter in the on progress change method. All right. Now, that's all the high level stuff. Next, they go into how to handle the low level stuff, which starts on page 180. So, it says most Android devices are touchscreen devices that the user can interact with by touching the screen. Now, I'm not going to disagree with that totally, but again, today what a lot of people are doing is with their Android, they're using one Android device to control another Android device. If I want to control my refrigerator, I might very well be able to do it from my phone. All right? And to many people, that's why they can't live without their phones. I forgot, I was going to tell you about this article I get sent because I subscribe to a bunch of places. Somebody answer this question, please. And it actually went down 7 minutes between 2017 and 2018. How long per day, on average, does an American use a mobile device? How many hours, minutes, whatever, per day?
7.
You're close. 6 hours and 42 minutes. That means that 27% of each year you're on this earth, 27% you are on a mobile device. That's why when people say, I know this is all a fad. You can make an Android app. Nobody's ever going to buy it. You're never going to make any money on it. You come up with a new idea or some way to innovate an existing idea, you can make yourself enough money with one app that you never have to work again. Don't think it hasn't happened. I don't know if you ever heard about this. One of the first iPhone apps that was ever created was called Steam. And what happened was you ran it, and the screen on your device got foggy looking. The guy did it more or less as a joke until he made over 100 grand in sales. And what most of these people are doing is they're only charging 99 cents. Because people aren't going to return something anyway from an app store. And even if they don't like it, oh, hell, I only paid $1 for it. All right?
iPhone keeps track of your screen time, and mine is 6 hours and 39 minutes per day.
There you go. So you're a little under average. Now, do you use any other devices? I mean, do you have a tablet at home?
No, just a phone.
Okay. All right. Says figure 6.7 shows how to work with a key event. All right, so that's here. Again, some of the stuff that's in here is a bit antiquated. But when you look at what's in here, I think the D on their D-pad stands for decimal keypad. But there's constants that you can use for this stuff and with this stuff. All right? It's a hard keyboard. That's the D-pad. Okay. So it says it indicates whether this method has consumed the event. Again, rather than actually doing data validation per se, what you can do is you can program things in. I did this for a class one year because I wanted to see how they would react. We created a form as a class, all right, and then I created a second form. With that second form, I had it set up. If they didn't put exactly in what I told them, they could hit enter, but it came right back to where they were. And I didn't tell them I did that. And it was driving people nuts. All I did was look at faces to see how they'd react. All right. Again, when a user touches a widget on a touchscreen device, a touch event occurs. You can program that to do what? It depends on what it is you want it to do. So if you're going to make a game, or even more than that, let's say you want to make a drawing program. And you make it for little kids, and you want to make it super easy. They can just take their finger, they can draw all over the screen. They can change colors, they can do whatever. And again, I'm sorry if I go too nuts over this stuff, but if you say it's not that big a thing. Yesterday, I watched, my granddaughter is 19 months old. Of course I'm biased. Of course I think she's the smartest little kid ever. But she grabbed my phone. It was on. That was it. I had nothing. She grabbed my phone. First she went to YouTube by herself, went through and changed the settings, changed a bunch of stuff. Then she went out to Facebook, went to my daughter's Facebook account, downloaded her wedding, and was sitting there watching that. Now that's somebody who is 19 months old. The funny thing is, my mom, we bought her an iPad for Christmas. And my daughter went and spent 8 hours, but she didn't write anything down. So my mom's almost 90. So she'll use it, but she keeps forgetting how to do stuff. So our joke was that we're going to go and during the break and go get my mom, bring her up here, and have her 19-month-old great-granddaughter teach her how to use it. That's why when people say there's no money to be made in this, I just laugh. I do. I'm like, you're nuts. You're just nuts. Sorry. All right, the rest of the chapter goes through that tip calculator app, and notice how they've changed it. All right? They've added a bunch of this stuff here. So they've added the seek bar, they've added radio buttons, they've added a spinner. All right? I gave you that code so you can take a look at that. They give you the code for it right in here, and that pretty much is the rest of the chapter. All right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you right now, I'm going to show you the homework. I still want to give it one last look-see, so to speak, but I want to show it to you. And the reason that I wanted to give you the homework today, not because, oh, I want to give you more homework. No, but I know at least Tony is finished, and maybe some of the rest of you are getting close to finishing. My plan is this. I showed you some of this yesterday on the board, but we've now done chapters 5 and 6. Monday I'm going to go over 7, Tuesday 8, Wednesday 9. All right? And that'll take an hour and a half or so each period. The rest will be lab. Thursday will be lab, all period. Friday will be lab, all period. This assignment that I'm going to show you right now, this assignment is due 2 weeks from today. In fact, I don't know if I even, that was one of the things. Oh, it is here. Good. So due 2/15. See that? And I'm starting to make my stuff 14 points as far as the size. People are telling, oh, I didn't see that on there. You know what? These eyes are 62 years old, and I see stuff. You know, when somebody who's 20 says, geez, I didn't see that, I'm like, yeah, right. So this is the same criteria you had last time. Everybody see this? 5 points, does your app run correctly when it's got valid inputs? 5 points, if you give it invalid input, does it give a toast or something else? Okay? 10 points, did you use solid logic? Now, Matt can write his totally different than Tony can, but they might both be fine. All right? This is not a comparison. But were you constantly repeating the same code all over the place? If you do that, that's grounds for taking some points off. Does it have a good look and feel? How long does it take you to put a different background color and a different text color on there? Literally seconds. Again, you want these to look professional. I wouldn't recommend this. I'm just telling you this. I could bring up one of mine because I just did it to see how the class would react. I did the BMI last year, and I made my background fuchsia, and I made my text color in the foreground hot green. And it was just ugly as hell. And it was funny. One of the reasons I did, I wanted to see if anybody'd react. And at the end of the period, one person came up and said, it's really an ugly interface, right? And I thought, well, good. At least somebody was listening and watching. Now look on the screen, please. In addition, no points for this. I want you to use the constraint layout for one of these, a linear layout for one of these, a relative layout for one of these, a table layout for one of these, and a grid view layout for one of these. Now, if you notice in here, I'm going to give you both a hard copy of this and an e-copy. Okay, but if I come in here and I click here, there's other ones, but this was one of the first ones I found. This is not from developer.android.com. It's from codejourney.net. What is a layout? Layout structures. But they give you a little bit on here's what a linear should look like. Here's what a relative should look like. Here's what a table. So I tried to find you something that was a short read, but you'd be able to at least get a start with it. All right? So, yeah, the first one, I just couldn't help it. It's the old rock, paper, scissors. Now that you know how to do this, this is, just as an example of how it can look. And I don't know why, but my stuff got squished there. Somehow when I brought it up today, I think it's because it tried bringing it up with a constraint layout, and when I made it, it wasn't with a constraint layout or something. I don't know. But notice what we have here. Little title at the top, a rock button, a paper button, and a scissors button. That's you. You play against the computer. You've got, I don't care if you don't like, if you don't like my images, find your own. There are so many of them out there. Keep track of what you picked, what the computer picked, who won, how many times the computer's won, how many times you've won, and how many tie games. Does all that make sense? All right. You can also print out, for each time, user wins, etc. Put that out in a toast down here. Does that make sense to everyone? I didn't put a lot of instructions here because I figured you all knew how to do rock, paper, scissors. All right. That's the first one. Second one, work with a currency converter that we have. But I want you to change it. Look on the screen, please. You've got your choice. You can do it one of two ways. All right, so here's the converter as it currently exists. If you want to keep it like this, like it is, that's okay. Look on the screen, please. But I want you to have a drop-down list, and I want you to put in there, do you want to go to euros, to yen, etc. Now, if you really want to be creative, you don't have to do this. But if you really want to be creative, make two drop-down lists. Right here and right here. And that's from this to this. Does that make sense? And if you want to be even more creative than that, when you choose something here, make it so you can't choose it there. It doesn't make sense to go from US dollars to US dollars. I mean, you could do that, but it'd be just dumb. So you can do it in a bunch of different ways. All right? Does that make sense? And again, I gave you some more instructions here, and I tried to put it in there where it would make sense to all of you. I said, again, using what we've learned, create an Android app called Converter. You can call it Converter 2, whatever you need to, which builds on the currency converter we created in class. If you don't like the image, choose a different one. That's totally fine. Use at least one spinner in here. All right? Show the result in a toast. Okay? That's number 2. Here's number 3. Did we do this last semester? Did we one day go over that Joe's Auto program? Okay. Well, Joe's has changed. Look on the screen here. Right now, as of now, Joe is only going to have oil and lube and is going to have the miscellaneous. Not going to be doing any more flushes, not going to be doing anything with parts and labor. So I want you to set up an app where a mechanic could put this stuff in and you'd get the bill based on the work you're doing. Does that make sense? I found this interesting. You may not. I don't know. But if you go out to Google Images and you type in Joe's Auto, it actually finds something. So there's all sorts of stuff here. You know, you want to use that? Use that. I mean, you could make your own. I think that's a lot of work to expect from you. But if you want, you go out and make your own. You like that one? Use that one. I don't really care. You just use whatever the heck one you want. That's not that important. So as it says on here, we're to use the grab an image like I just said. Joe's decided to downsize. Oil change, chassis lube, or combo. That's what's going to go in your radio button group. Safety inspection, muffler replacement, tire rotation. That's going to go in your checkboxes. All right? Use the prices that I've shown. And even with that, get used to, add constants. Have a constant for muffler replacement. All right? So use constants. After the user has chosen all the options and you ask them for a bill, add 12% for a sales tax. I don't know what the sales tax is in most places. I just know that when I go and take my car in for work, to have some work on it, it always costs way too much. All right, period. Again, modularize, etc. So that's 3. Number 4, and I will give you this code if you want to see it. It's that fortune teller thing. So here is a before picture. You don't have to do it like that. You can do it any doggone way you want to do it. I think it'd be kind of cool if you go in and do some work on your own and see if you can do something with a timer. If you say it was too hard, I couldn't get it, then don't put it in. All right? It can mirror mine, or it can be totally your own creation. I said try to add a timer if you can. Use your own creativity. The last one is one we're going to end up doing as a class, but I'd like you to start trying it on your own. That is, I want you to take whatever you can fit on the screen from your resume and start to create an app with it. Does that make sense? So here's an example that I just pulled from online. Okay? That doesn't mean yours is going to look anything like this. But as we go and we become more sophisticated and we go through the rest of the chapters, okay? In this section of the book, we have now gone over layouts and we've gone over events. You'd all agree with that. Monday, we're going to go over themes and styles. I want you to try to add a theme to at least this one. All right? On Tuesday, we're going to go over menus and preferences. This would be another one if you want to. Add a simple menu here. Like what? Look on the screen. You could put a menu, click there to give me a call. Click there to get a PDF of my resume. Click there to send me an email. Does that make sense? Keep it simple. KISS principle. All right? Then on Wednesday of next week, we're going to go over Chapter 9, which is on how to use fragments. If you've never heard of the word fragment before in the construct here of using Android apps, it's the ability to split your screen like in half. Okay? And if you don't know what that means, you will after Wednesday. But try to put some of that stuff in there. Just do the best you can. All right? Questions on any of this? So I'm just going to check my wordage, and after I do, I'll print off 5 copies. You'll each get one, and I'll email each one of you, so you'll have that hyperlink if you want to get to it. All right, so you'll have both hard copies and electronic copies. All right, that's all that I had.